The arithmetic of aristocratic scandal rarely adds up to public satisfaction, but Royal Lodge's financial mysteries create equations that would perplex even the most sophisticated forensic accountants. Consider the variables. One £30 million mansion requiring £4 to £5 million in annual maintenance, occupied by a prince whose official allowances were terminated, yet somehow the bills continue to be paid with sources as mysterious as the property's spreading black mold. This 98-acre Georgian estate has become Britain's most expensive riddle, where architectural grandeur masks financial arrangements that transform family drama into constitutional crisis. The King's strategic funding cuts were meant to encourage alternative accommodations, but they have instead created the royal equivalent of a high-stakes poker game, where the stakes are measured in both pounds sterling and institutional credibility. Every day that Prince Andrew remains ensconced within Royal Lodge's crumbling walls, the mystery deepens. What undisclosed resources sustain this defiant occupation, and why does the monarchy's accounting remain as opaque as the mansion's mold-darkened windows? Thus, in today's episode of Old Money Mansions, we attempt to decode the financial enigma surrounding Britain's most controversial royal residence, where the numbers refuse to balance and the explanations remain elusive. When property experts value your home at £30 million but describe its condition as shocking and impossible to rescue, you know you've achieved that special kind of aristocratic decay that only comes with truly spectacular mismanagement. Welcome to Royal Lodge, Prince Andrew's Windsor Great Park fortress, where Georgian elegance meets 21st century scandal in a spectacular collision of architectural heritage and royal hubris. This Grade 2 listed mansion sprawls across 98 acres of some of Britain's most prestigious real estate, positioned 3 miles south of Windsor Castle like a wayward younger sibling who's embarrassing the family but refuses to move out. The 30-room Georgian gem presents a deceptively serene facade from its tree-lined approach, where visitors might mistake it for just another stately home if not for the armed police units patrolling the perimeter and the subtle air of constitutional crisis hanging over the manicured lawns. The main house exemplifies Georgian architectural principles with its central 3-story section flanked by symmetrical 2-story wings, creating a harmonious composition that would make any architecture professor weep. Whether from beauty or the current state of disrepair remains debatable. 7 bedrooms provide ample accommodation for a family that includes an ex-wife who moved back in despite their divorce being finalized 29 years ago, because apparently even separated royals understand the value of keeping your enemies closer and your property lawyers closest. The drawing room, once described as suitable for grand entertaining, now serves as a stage for family drama that makes Dynasty look like a documentary about conflict resolution. Recent photographs reveal the kind of maintenance issues that would make any homeowner reach for the insurance paperwork. Crumbling paintwork that suggests decades of deferred maintenance, cracks in the brickwork that spell structural engineer in letters large enough to read from space, and black mold that adds an uninviting Gothic atmosphere to rooms once graced by Queen Elizabeth, the Queen Mother. The original conservatory, a surviving remnant from the mansion's 19th century incarnation, stands as testimony to what happens when Georgian craftsmanship meets modern neglect. It's still structurally sound, unlike some of its current occupants' reputations. 21 acres of private gardens once provided the backdrop for royal wedding receptions and family celebrations, though recent reports suggest the landscape has achieved the kind of romantic overgrowth that garden designers spend fortunes trying to recreate artificially. The Royal Chapel of All Saints, constructed in 1825, adds spiritual gravitas to the estate while serving as a reminder that even divine intervention has limits when it comes to royal property maintenance. 6 lodge cottages, a gardener's cottage, and specialized police accommodation dot the grounds like architectural footnotes to a story that keeps getting more complicated with each chapter. Windsor Great Park's 5,000 acres provide a stunning natural setting that enhances the property's value while highlighting the contrast between Britain's magnificent royal heritage and the occasionally less magnificent behaviour of its current custodians. The location within walking distance of Windsor Castle serves as a daily reminder to King Charles III of his brother's expensive proximity, a geographical inconvenience that has reportedly inspired His Majesty to suggest alternative accommodations with the enthusiasm of a landlord discovering unauthorised pets. Yet beneath the scandal and deterioration lies a property of genuine architectural and historical significance, where centuries of royal history continue unfolding in ways that even the most imaginative Georgian architect could never have anticipated. The transformation of Royal Lodge from a modest 17th-century dairy operation into today's controversial royal residence represents one of British architecture's most expensive examples of mission creep. Originally known as Watkins House, after tenant John Watkins during the Commonwealth period, this humble brick structure began life serving the decidedly unglamorous but essential function of housing Windsor Great Park's agricultural operations. By 1750, the property had evolved into the Dairy, serving as residence for Thomas Sandby, a distinguished military topographer whose artistic talents far exceeded his property maintenance skills, establishing a tradition of creative residence with questionable domestic priorities. The building's first brush with royal attention came in 1812, when George, Prince of Wales, later George IV, required temporary accommodation while rebuilding nearby Cumberland Lodge, because apparently even future kings sometimes need to couch surf, albeit in considerably more elegant circumstances. Enter John Nash, the architectural wizard whose talents for creating romantic fantasy from prosaic reality would make modern Instagram influencers weep with professional envy. Nash transformed the utilitarian structure into a cottage ornate gem, complete with rustic thatched roofs, elegant verandas, and the kind of studied informality that only unlimited royal budgets can achieve convincingly. The design philosophy embraced the Romantic movement's obsession with picturesque aesthetics, creating an idealized rural retreat that provided respite from court formalities while maintaining appropriate royal dignity. Nash's architectural vision centered on the concept of rus in urbe, bringing countryside charm to royal living through carefully orchestrated informality that somehow cost more than most people's actual formal residences. The Prince Regent's enthusiasm for the project extended beyond mere architectural improvements to encompass spiritual provisions, commissioning Geoffrey Wyatville in 1825 to design the Royal Chapel of All Saints within a former porter's lodge. Wyatville informed the Treasury that the chapel represented a matter of unavoidable necessity to accommodate the worship needs of the expanding royal establishment, apparently unaware he was establishing precedent for royal necessity arguments that would echo through centuries. The architectural collaboration between Nash and Wyatville created a harmonious blend of Regency romanticism and Georgian restraint, producing a residence that balanced intimate domestic comfort with suitable royal grandeur. However, this carefully crafted architectural harmony faced its demise in 1830, when King William IV ascended the throne with decidedly different aesthetic preferences and a healthy skepticism about his predecessor's expensive enthusiasms. William's reaction to George IV's elaborate cottage proved as swift as it was devastating. He ordered the demolition of virtually everything Nash had created, sparing only the conservatory in what architectural historians now recognize as one of the 19th century's most spectacular examples of royal property rage. The demolition represented more than mere aesthetic disagreement. It reflected fundamental philosophical differences about royal representation, with William favoring practical simplicity over romantic extravagance. The subsequent rebuilding in the 1840s produced the essential Georgian framework that defines today's Royal Lodge, though the irony of demolishing perfectly good royal architecture only to rebuild it in a different style seems to have escaped contemporary observers. The Georgian revival design emphasized symmetrical proportions, classical details, and the kind of restrained elegance that suggests serious money without quite achieving the theatrical excess that apparently made William IV reach for the demolition orders. This pattern of expensive reconstruction, followed by expensive reconstruction, would establish Royal Lodge's reputation as a property that consistently demands more resources than anyone initially budgets. Such architectural phoenix-like resurrection from royal ashes would prove remarkably prophetic for a property destined to survive repeated threats through pure stubborn persistence, setting the stage for its next chapter as a beloved family home. Royal Lodge's transformation from architectural survivor to cherished royal sanctuary began in 1931 when King George V granted it to his second son, Prince Albert, later King George VI, and his wife Elizabeth. The Duke and Duchess of York approached their new country home with infectious enthusiasm, commissioning additional wings and collaborating with Sir Eric Saville on garden improvements that would define the property's character for generations. This expansion created the family-friendly environment where Princess Elizabeth and Princess Margaret spent formative childhood years developing deep connections to Windsor Great Park that would characterize Elizabeth's later reign and establish Royal Lodge as the monarchy's unofficial heart. During the 1930s, the property became synonymous with the informal domestic side of royal life, offering striking contrast to the ceremonial grandeur of Windsor Castle and Buckingham Palace, while maintaining appropriate dignity for future queens. The wartime years transformed Royal Lodge into a sanctuary where the royal family maintained semblance of normal domestic life, despite extraordinary pressures of leading the nation through World War II, proving that even constitutional monarchs sometimes need somewhere to simply be themselves. Following George VI's unexpected death in 1952, Queen Elizabeth, the Queen Mother, inherited the property and began the longest single occupancy in Royal Lodge's history, spanning 50 remarkable years until her death in 2002. The Queen Mother's residency represented Royal Lodge's absolute zenith, when the property served as venue for countless private royal gatherings, christenings, and family celebrations that formed the fabric of royal family life away from public scrutiny. Her particular style of royal entertaining combined formal protocol with genuine warmth and hospitality, creating an atmosphere where distinguished guests felt simultaneously honored and genuinely welcome, a delicate balance that requires both natural grace and exceptional household management. Under her stewardship, Royal Lodge evolved into something more than mere royal residence. It became the emotional center of the Windsor family, where protocol could occasionally relax and relationships could develop beyond ceremonial constraints. The gardens flourished under the Queen Mother's attention, with Sir Eric Saville's original designs maturing into spectacular displays that attracted horticultural enthusiasts from around the world, while providing perfect settings for private family photographs. The property during this golden age represented successful marriage of historical architecture with contemporary comfort, proving that Georgian buildings could adapt to 20th century living without sacrificing either dignity or domesticity. Princess Margaret's frequent visits during this period established Royal Lodge as a multi-generational family hub, where royal children could experience relatively normal childhoods while learning the protocols and responsibilities that would define their adult lives. The Queen Mother's famous hospitality extended beyond family to include artists, politicians, and distinguished visitors who found at Royal Lodge an atmosphere of cultivated informality that encouraged genuine conversation and lasting friendships. Her death in 2002 marked not just the end of an era, but the beginning of fundamental questions about Royal Lodge's future that would eventually lead to its current controversial status. The property she left behind represented more than architectural heritage. It embodied decades of royal family memories, traditions, and the kind of institutional knowledge that disappears when long-term residents depart. Prince Andrew's acquisition of a 75-year lease in 2003 initially seemed like logical succession, allowing continuity of royal occupation while establishing new financial arrangements that reflected changing attitudes toward royal property management. The lease terms, requiring £1 million upfront plus £7.5 million in renovations, demonstrated serious commitment to maintaining the property's heritage while adapting it for contemporary needs. Yet this transition also marked the beginning of Royal Lodge's transformation from beloved family retreat into something altogether more controversial, as new ownership brought new challenges that would test both architectural resilience and royal family relationships in unprecedented ways. Today's Royal Lodge operates as both private residence and public symbol of how traditional royal privilege collides with 21st century expectations of transparency and accountability. The property has become headquarters for what media have dubbed the Siege of Royal Lodge, where Prince Andrew maintains occupation despite King Charles III's increasingly vocal suggestions that he explore alternative accommodations, preferably ones that don't require millions in annual upkeep. Andrew's determination to remain stems from his 75-year lease agreement, which provides legal protection until 2078, though this arrangement appears less bulletproof when faced with strategic funding cuts and determined royal displeasure. The financial architecture supporting Andrew's lifestyle has become as mysterious as the building's actual architecture is transparent, with observers struggling to understand how someone whose official royal allowance was terminated continues funding a property requiring £4 to £5 million annually. King Charles's decision to terminate Andrew's £1 million annual allowance and £3 million security funding represents more than fraternal disagreement. It reflects fundamental questions about resource allocation that extend far beyond Windsor Great Park's boundaries. The mystery deepened following revelations about Andrew's and Seven's sale of Sunninghill Park to Kazakh oligarch Timur Kulibayev for £3 million above asking price, a transaction that investigators in multiple countries have examined for possible irregularities. Sarah Ferguson's return to Royal Lodge in 2008, following a fire at her separate residence, created the unusual domestic arrangement that continues today, where divorced couples navigate shared living spaces while maintaining separate public personas and occasionally separate legal troubles. Recent property assessments reveal maintenance challenges, including roof repairs, mold remediation, and water damage that could require hundreds of thousands of pounds to address properly, providing Charles with additional leverage in ongoing negotiations. Celebrity landscape historian Todd Longstaff Gowan's assessment of the gardens as being in shocking state and impossible to rescue without vast funds highlights how quickly even professionally maintained estates can deteriorate when resources become constrained. Andrew's apparent strategy involves leveraging emotional connections, including his role as caretaker to the late Queen's corgis, Muke and Sandy, calculating that Charles will hesitate to displace beloved family pets along with their increasingly problematic guardian. The Royal Chapel of All Saints continues hosting private family services, recently serving as venue for Princess Beatrice's pandemic wedding ceremony, demonstrating how family traditions persist even amid constitutional crises. Security arrangements continue operating at costs exceeding many small businesses' annual revenues, funded through sources that remain diplomatically opaque to public scrutiny, despite mounting pressure for transparency. Princess Beatrice and Princess Eugenie's childhood memories tie them emotionally to the property, creating additional complications as family loyalties intersect with financial realities and public expectations. The broader implications extend beyond family drama to questions about monarchy's adaptation to contemporary expectations, with Royal Lodge serving as test case for how traditional institutions navigate modern accountability demands. Expert opinion suggests the property's £30 million valuation depends entirely on restoration addressing current deterioration, creating a circular problem where value requires investment that current arrangements make increasingly unlikely. Whether Royal Lodge survives as royal residence or transforms into commercial opportunity depends on resolving questions about funding, relationships, and constitutional expectations that challenge fundamental assumptions about royal privilege. The ongoing saga represents more than property dispute. It embodies tensions between inherited privilege and earned position that will influence royal operations for generations beyond current protagonists. This Georgian masterpiece, having survived one royal demolition, and decades of architectural evolution, now faces its greatest challenge: remaining relevant and sustainable in an era when even palaces must justify their existence through more than historical significance alone. And now, we'd like to see you in the comments. Were you aware of Royal Lodge and its darker connotations? We look forward to hearing your thoughts, and thanks for joining us for another episode of Old Money Mansions. Cheers.